Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Afternoons with the Ambassador, back on our normal day, normal time, Mondays at 12. And greetings to everybody and everything that will catch this, and everybody that's going to start coming into the chat. To my panel, Mountains of Elysium and Adega. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Thank you for being here as always. I really appreciate it. So, how are we all doing today?
Really good, and thanks for the invite once again.
You're welcome.
Doing very good.
So,
they abandoned me.
All right. There. Happy. Well, folks, we are going to be continuing our journey through the Babylon 5 Season 1, and today is going to be this might get a little heated, not in terms of the discussion amongst the three of us, but just in terms of this particular episode, because today we're going to be talking about Season 1, Episode, I think, 10, which is called Beliefs. And this episode, it is a heavy hitter, to say the least. So, yeah, guys, where do you want to start? I open up the floor to the panel.
There is a rather large elephant in the room on this one, and I think we jump right into that.
Yeah, by all means.
I think we were chatting a bit beforehand, and yeah, this is one that I often prefer to skip if I could. It is a really tough one, and
yeah,
I myself am religious, and I'm going, yeah, this is, for me, no. I couldn't do it, but I have to try and see things from their religious standpoint. What is their cultural beliefs? And it's a tough one.
Yeah, because this episode deals with a family that has come to the station. For those of you that may not be familiar with this episode, deals with a alien family that has come to the station looking for medical aid for their son because he is having difficulty with his breathing system, his respiratory system. And this is a very Dr. Franklin centric episode. I mean, you do have some interplay with him and Sinclair and Garibaldi, and of course you got Ivanova off on her own little mission and everything, escorting a transport from the station to the station because it got lost. And to just kind of touch on that for a minute, I love that scene there at the beginning of the episode with Ivanova and Sinclair when she's like, I'll just walk to and fro, back and forth from my console and then some, and I might even take up knitting. And he's like, she's like, does the term stir crazy mean anything to you? And I think we can all sympathize with Commander Ivanova, because I think we've all been a little stir crazy considering what's been going on in the real world. But I do like the. Yeah, I do love you just get a little bit of levity, because this episode, it is a heavy episode, to say the least, and it's one that, as a Mountains of Elysium, I think it's a sentiment I share. If I could skip this episode, believe me, folks, I would. But honestly, to do service to you all and to do service to the series, we're not going to skip anything, even if it's difficult. We're going to plow into this episode. We're going to break it down. We're going to have some discussion. We may have some debate. I might get a little heated, but please understand that I'm not getting heated with my panel or with the chat. Either way, it's just how I feel about this particular episode. So anyway, getting into the main part of the episode here. Basically, this family has come to the station seeking medical aid for their child. He's got some breathing difficulty, and Franklin's like, this is not a problem. We'll perform an operation and remove the blockage, and your son will be just fine. And that's when everything hits the fan. To quote Airplane, that's when the shite hits the fan. So, guys, where do we want to start with this?
Yes, it's seeing one of the things when I heard a parent say refusing treatment because we performed this operation on food animals, I'm going, you knew how to save your child but didn't. And then I'm so torn on this one because I want to listen to their beliefs, and yet I'm going, there's the reality. I almost feel like that South Park episode, don't want to touch this with a barge pole, but it is, yeah, the I'm sorry, I have to compose myself here because this is such a tough episode. The to me, the parents clearly love their child, but religion plays such an important part in their life that they're unwilling to bend in any way. And in some ways, that's what you'd see the ideal religious person as. But there's also the idea of being a reed rather than too hard that you'll break or too soft that you'll just give into anything. You should be able to compromise in some way to allow for these events. But they did not look for any compromise. I know myself, I spent, of all the episodes of Babylon 5, this is one of the ones I've thought most about. How could Franklin have dealt with this, taking their religious beliefs into consideration, which he did try to do at the start? He shot down Hernandez when she was saying, just operate, don't pay any attention to their beliefs, just operate.
Yeah.
And I spent so long trying to figure out a way, how could he have done it? And this is thinking, since I saw this, was it 15, 20 years ago? I'm still thinking, how could you do it?
Well, and speaking for myself, I have tried to look at this from various positions and everything, because I myself am as most everybody knows by this point, a very devout Christian, and my beliefs, my position on things, my position on certain doctrines and what have you, they play a role in my life. But what's difficult for me in this episode is the fact that I have tried to put myself in the position of the parents. I really have. I tried to put myself in their position, but I find it exceedingly difficult to do so for the simple fact that even as a person of faith, as a Christian, if it were my child, I would say, you know what? I don't care what the church or the denomination might say it to me or to my family or anything else. They may kick me out of the denomination. I don't give a damn. And to the chat, Mando Merck, hello, my friend. Good to see you. Yeah, I tried to put myself in the position of the parents. And if it meant me getting cast out of my denomination or my faith, but my child was still breathing, fine. My child still breathes. My child is more important. I can worship God and whatever else in my own way, and to hell with my denominational beliefs. That's honestly where the rubber meets the road for me, because I, for a lot of years and everything, was a member of two different denominations, and for a couple of different reasons, I decided to break ties with both of them. Everything. One was when I was young, and the other one when I was older and everything. I was in my late 30s, and I got tired of the denomination I was a part of. I got tired of their runaround and their crap. So I was like, guess what? You're not the only show in town. I may not belong to your denomination, but I'm still a Christian. I still believe in God. I still believe in Christ. I'm still saved. I just don't subscribe to your particular doctrine. So that's one way that I approached this, how I approached this episode, and said, I understand the parents' beliefs. I even sympathize with them to a point. I wouldn't have been as rude and condescending as they were, and I certainly wouldn't have been as, I'm not sure what word would be appropriate for the father, but I wouldn't have been as big of a jackwagon as the father was, just declaring everybody else on the station. His wife has to speak for him because he's too good, or he wants to not appear unclean, or whatever nonsense was going on through his narrow little brain. And I would just spoke straight to the commander. So, but anyway, that's my initial thoughts on it. Guys, please.
I want to throw something here into the mix because I have a special needs son who won't live a full life. And there's medical things that can be done to him or for him.
Mm-hmm.
But in the process of doing those, it takes away other things. So we come with the decision is, do we go through these procedures, maybe help him to learn to walk, but then he loses cognitive abilities. Sure, he can walk around the house, but now he doesn't think as well as he does. Or say we do something that reduces his potential for greater seizures, and then he loses cognitive ability. The ability to go out and enjoy an amusement park with the family, or see the flowers grow, or even be able to realize that there's a television on, all because we wanted to make his life longer to suit our needs, all because we wanted him to not experience pain. But in the process of not experience pain, he also doesn't experience joy. He doesn't get to see the world around him the way it should be seen.
Yeah.
Now, taking that, in my field, because I see both sides of it, I am not taking one side or the other. I am just presenting both sides. I may express some of the things that I've had to do over the years, which still haunt me, even though I had to do them. And believe it or not, chiropractors do get put in positions which are quite painful. You wouldn't think so, but you do.
I can imagine.
One, for example, and this only relates in the regard that it does give you an emotional aspect of how tough sometimes things can get. I had a lady that came into the office she was visiting her family. She was had low back pain, and the emergency doctor says, "Oh no, just, you know what, you're fine. Go to the chiropractor." She came in, I did an exam, didn't touch her chiropractic wise. I knew exactly what was going on. She had a massive pelvic infection. The lady was dying. I called an ambulance to come and take her from my office, which no reasonable chiropractor would ever do, because seeing an ambulance in front of your office starts spreading rumors, and it does bad for business. I wasn't there for business. I was there for the lady. This was my time to help her. When the paramedics came, I said, "These are the tests you need to tell the doctors to take. This is how you transport her." They looked at me and said, "Yeah, okay, sure, doc," with sarcasm, because I was a chiropractor, not a medical doctor. They didn't respect us, even though we have a better understanding of what it means to be healthy than what a medical doctor does. They can read charts and prescribe pharmaceuticals and no toxicity, but when it comes to a healthy body, they didn't know. So they took her to the hospital. She was there for a few minutes. The doctor looked at her and said, "No, the guy's wrong. You got back pain. Here's the pain pill. Go home." She died that night from the very infection I was trying to save her from. Now, there was another time when I had a mother who had one of the twins who was 4 years old, and I knew the history of the twins because they weren't exactly healthy. And this is where I'm going to piss people off. I know there's people out here in the audience that are going to be pissed off for this. And I'm not going to spend the time to explain the whole thing, because there is a time and a place for everything. But the mother said, "Yeah, my husband wants this kid to be vaccinated. I'm not sure. Vaccines can be done right. We just don't do them right. Not all of them, in any way." And I told her, "No, this is not a good idea. Your child is at risk. And to put them at further at risk because of all the poisons that are included with these vaccines that are done improperly, not the correct way, it will be very bad on the child." That day, that very same day, Dad took the twin to the doctor, got vaccinated, and it died within 8 hours. They now have one kid. So I've been placed in these positions. There's a lot of them.
Yeah, I can imagine.
The thing is that dad has a group of people that tell him he did the right thing. There are a group of people that tell the mom that she had done the right thing. And both sides can prevent evidence. Now, when it comes to this child in this show who was sick and dying, we don't know if the species had some type of sixth sense where they could smell or see or hear or feel the spirit of the child, know what was going to go on, and think of the child. If they had saved it, where would the child live, knowing their entire society now viewed him as evil? He couldn't go home. He could never have a family. He would be an outcast for the rest of his life. Did the parents save him from all that trauma? Like I said, I'm not taking sides here.
Yeah.
My job has always been to save life. But whose life was better? The child never went through all that misery. His suffering ended. And I'm not up for saying euthanasia is a good thing either.
Yeah,
but it's
right.
a perspective that we don't understand, because that whole civilization understands reality totally different than what was presented to everyone else, including all the ambassadors.
Yeah.
The closest one who came to having empathy besides Sinclair was Delenn.
Yeah.
The other ones didn't have the time of day to put themselves in a position where things would be so difficult for them to understand. So in this regard, I think this was a fantastic episode that should be watched, simply because it does dig into your gut and make you see things that you didn't see before. Consider something where you look at someone and think they're evil, but why would you think they're evil? Because it's your perspective? Because it's your belief system? What about the poor child? Like my son. Do I want to extend his life and deprive him from being able to go to the amusement parks? To be able to go swimming?
Mm-hmm.
You know, they could put devices in his back and he'd never go swimming again, and yet he loves it. Why would I do that? Seriously, it's something to think about.
Well, and Adega, honestly, I wholeheartedly agree with you, because I don't necessarily see the parents as evil. If anything, and I know I got a little heated before we started and everything. Before me and Mountains and Adega were talking before we went live. I got very heated. I'll be the first to admit, and I'll tell you all the truth. There have been times this episode has been exceedingly difficult for me to watch, because, as I told them, I am very much like Dr. McCoy. I let my passions sometimes rule me. But then there are times I can switch off my passions and look at things very calculating and very analytically. I don't see the parents as evil. I don't even see them. I respect them for their devotion to their beliefs. I respect them because of the lengths they are going to hold to their beliefs. That I can those things I can wholeheartedly and sincerely respect. But I put myself in their position, and it's difficult for me to do so, because, granted, I have never been a parent. Unfortunately, I will never get the chance to be a parent, except to our cat. But I have to ask myself, if my religious beliefs dictated me to behave in such a way that I couldn't see my way past those beliefs and were just so stringently stuck within them, that would I make the same choice that they would? Yeah. I think I would. I would make the same choice that they did. And they obviously come from a religious belief system that is very foreign, very different than anything that we have here on our world. And honestly, this does present a very interesting what if scenario.
Well, it actually isn't that foreign, because those type of beliefs are here. We have the
Yeah.
Jehovah's Witnesses. We have the Seventh-day Adventists. There are several
Yeah.
different other religions where they say, no, you
Oh, yeah.
don't do these things.
Yeah.
Simple things like, here you have a blood transfusion, you're going to be all right, and they won't do it.
Yeah. Well, the thing I was going to say is, and yes, Adega, those did honestly slip my mind. I think I appreciate you for bringing them up, but it does present an interesting what if scenario. And you know what? I want to live long enough to where I am able to function fully, but I don't want to live long enough to where I'm a burden on anybody. But I like to believe in the back of my mind, I will live long enough for us to maybe reach beyond our own little world and our own little corner of the galaxy and our universe, and maybe we find extraterrestrial life. And maybe we have to use episodes like this from Babylon 5 if these extraterrestrial races have some sort of religious belief system that is foreign to us. And we use this as kind of a template of saying, okay, how do we want to handle this? And I'll say this for Straczynski. He did a very good job in putting upon the framework and everything for someone else to write the story. And the person and everything, Mountains Elysium, he mentioned that it was Mountains. Remind me, I don't exactly recall who was it that wrote this episode and what was their claim.
It was David Gerald. He also wrote the Star Trek the original series episode Trouble with Tribbles.
Okay, thank you. You know, between Straczynski and Gerald and everything, they were able to, they have presented us with a theoretical template for how we could, as humans, try to understand and relate to a alien race's belief system and how we can hopefully find some common ground on which to relate to one another. Because
that's the whole thing. That's one of the biggest problems with all of our societies ever since day one. All of us are stooped in superstition, tradition, myth, and beliefs that have us grounded, founded, and planted in our way of doing things, the way of seeing things. And even as something as simple as the way our children are taught, or politics, these basic things, the arguments so easily come when it shouldn't be that way. What the hard part is when we are able to accept what is true in our belief system and then accept what is true in their belief system and overcome what isn't true in both and realize that, hey, there may be something wrong with the way I do things. And hey, there may be something wrong with the way they do things. But if I try and force it down their throat, the same as we do now with our own people, all you get is resistance.
You know what, Anadega, that was extremely astute. You know what, I never really thought about that, because if you think about it, they go to Jakar, they go to Londo, they go to Kosh, they go to Delim. I forget exactly what Jakar's response was. I do recall that for Londo, it was simply a matter of finance. How much, as he said, how much justice can you afford? With Kosh, he gives a very cryptic yet, I think, apropos response, because he's already said, we do not get involved in the affairs of others. Kosh was remaining neutral, which I honestly can respect. Because I think Kosh sees the fact that this would be I hate to use this word, but I think it's the best word, a problematic position for him to place himself and the Vorlon Empire in. The only one who, as Adega and Mountains have mentioned already, is Delenn. She seemed to be the only one that was sympathetic, except for maybe Sinclair. Well, okay, definitely Sinclair. No, maybe about it. But And, I got, as I said, I got a little heated because honestly, if I had been in a particular circumstance, if I had been in Sinclair's position, and if my portrayal of Sinclair was the vindictive sort, I would have said, "Sorry, you are unfit as parents. You are allowing your religious belief to supersede your own good reason and your own common sense, and allowing that belief to cloud your judgment about what is best for your child. I'm going to let Dr. Franklin perform the procedure." And you know what else? As I said, if I was being vindictive, I would have slapped their butts in the brig, and I would have piped a broadcast of the surgery privately into their brig, into their prison cell. But again, that's the vindictive version of Sinclair. I think Sinclair's actual response in episode was, it was difficult. You could tell that it was difficult for Sinclair, and I respect the fact that he did try to see both sides of the situation. So, fellas, anything there?
I actually
Go
found
ahead.
with Sinclair's answer that if it was just about saving the child's life, there wouldn't even be an issue. He would have done, as you said, grabbed the parents, thrown them in the brig, and says, "No, you operate." But it was the idea of if he did that, and I think they had a brilliant conversation in the corridor.
Oh yeah.
If I did this, anytime something goes against Earth's desires, you cannot trust it, that the entire idea of Babylon 5 could fall apart over that one issue.
Very true.
And just small backtracking, I just found it interesting that Delenn refused to help herself on religious grounds. That was her, and they criticized her for her religious beliefs, which I found was another interesting point, that it was whose religious beliefs are correct, and that's the position that Sinclair was facing, which was extremely difficult.
Yeah, and I can respect Delenn for her fact that she remained outside. She decided not to intervene because obviously, for whatever reason, I remember her remark, but I'm not exactly sure where the reference point is or anything for that remark. When she made the comment that others had interfered in the religious belief system of her world. I don't know if she was referring to the Vorlons or if she was referring to someone else. I don't know. Maybe one of you can shed some light on that, because honestly, I can understand what she was saying, but I'm not exactly getting the reference point and anything. Is there something that I missed in a book or something that makes reference to something in the Minbari past where somebody from the outside came in and was trying to dictate a religious belief to them?
I believe that's something to do with the Soul Hunters, where the
oh yeah, I almost forgot about them. Thank you, Mountains. Appreciate that. Yeah, that's I completely forgot about those guys. Wow. Okay. Now that makes that remark makes sense.
I actually found something, and it was when I was reading through, I was taking notes, that the only person who seemed to show complete and utter respect for another's beliefs was Sean, where Franklin gave him the piece of goo as a placebo. But he believed Franklin thought it was actually an egg, and he told Sinclair, "Don't tell him he believes it's an egg. I want him to believe." He was willing to go along with his beliefs, to, even though he knew it was wrong, to soothe Franklin and help him and not have him worry. And I thought, of all the people, it was the young boy in the middle of it who showed the most respect for another's belief system, even though he got it wrong.
Yeah, and that's a very interesting insight there, Mountains. Yeah, absolutely, because even though it was meant to be kind of a soothing thing for the young boy Sean and everything, I was like, I think it was Dr. Hernandez that pointed out that's just a piece of an industrial goo that's completely harmless. He's like, yeah, I know. But he's like, maybe it'll help the kid out. So, it's just I think that was a nice little touch that showed some tolerance, at least from one member of that. I don't remember if they gave the name to the actual species or not, but because I don't think you ever see him ever again in any.
There is
Go
another
ahead.
guy in about 3 episodes. Was it TKO? The guy was I can't think of his name. In the
Oh,
Muay, that is one of
yeah.
their race as well.
That's yeah.
They
Hey.
are what they're called, the On-Teen.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. But yeah, that'll be that's a few episodes down the road and everything with TKO. Yeah. But this I do love how there isn't, and both of you guys have made this comment, there is no necessarily a right answer to this situation. Because honestly, it's a seemingly no-win situation. If Franklin does nothing, the kid dies. If Franklin does do something, the kid lives, but he's ostracized from the rest of his society, from the rest of his culture, and he's essentially an orphan, even though his parents are very much alive and everything, but no one will have him. And that's unfortunate. And it does beg the question, where does the rubber meet the road? And I think that's something that every person has to wrestle with one point or another in their life.
This is a theme that comes up over and over again in the series. We can think of, I'll remember the name of the race as soon as we turn off the show, but they got that infectious disease. And they, instead of facing the truth, they all isolated themselves, thinking that they were being contaminated by other people, which in fact killed them all.
The Mark
Yeah, that was
Right.
the Marcab. Yeah,
there
that
was
in
also the Hayek Do, which were eliminated and embarrassed a race because of their beliefs. They didn't want to face the fact that they had genetically stifled themselves and they were going to die off. And then there's a big one, and I'm sure, Elysium, you'll know more about it than I do because it's from your neck of the woods, where Churchill, they had discovered the codes of the Germans, knew a town was going to be bombed, and he had the choice. Do we save this town and expose what we had learned, or for the greater good, let these people die?
Yeah.
And for the greater good, they died.
I think that was about Coventry.
Yes.
I think that was actually, wasn't that from Next Generation? Or was that from Babylon 5?
Actually, from Babylon 5, I think.
Okay.
It was, Sheridan. We'll talk about it in one of the
episodes. It was Sheridan, because they're they're right smack dab in the middle of the Shadow War, and he's talking about that to, I think, Delenn or somebody. Or maybe it was I think it was either Ivanova, or maybe it was it was Sheridan. I think it was in season 3. So, but that whole dilemma with the Marcab, and that's one that we'll get to when we get to it, because that's in season 2, if I remember correctly. But this is something that Straczynski, I don't recall his exact religious affiliation, if he has any at all, and everything. I don't know if he. I think he didn't. Is he atheist? I thought.
Yeah, he's very hardcore, a supposedly hardcore atheist, but he believes in respecting the beliefs of others.
Yeah, and and I think that was I have no. If a person's an atheist, I'm not going to look at them and say, "Well, you're going straight to hell," because that's not, from my religious perspective, that's not being kind. That's not being considerate. That's not being respectful. Even if a person is atheistic, they have no religious belief. I don't recall a single line of scripture anywhere, nor do I, to the best of my memory, recall anything from the early church or even anywhere in church history, as best as I can recall, where at least within modern church history since the 1900s, let's put it that way, where you have a Christian looking at an atheist. Although I imagine there have been instances where it has happened.
I know in my church they do say that some will argue that, oh yes, unless you're fully Catholic, you're condemned. However, there is the thing called it's baptism of desire. It's where you do not find God, but in your heart, if you knew He existed, that you're saved, and you're then judged on your actions.
Yeah.
So it's not black and white. That it doesn't mean that you must 100% be Catholic. Many will argue that, obviously, but it's my belief that people will find their way to God. And I also had a Catholic evangelization channel, and what I found is the biggest turnoff to people trying to bring them to your side, to your faith, is bad Catholics. They're the biggest turnoff to becoming Catholic because they act completely contrary to the faith, nasty, where you should be meeting people where they are. You go out to the streets, you meet people, you help them, and you say, look, here's a hand, you don't have to take it. You don't force people. You don't say, though in the past, the Catholic Church, and I'm first to admit it, are really guilty of doing things by the sword when they should never have done that.
Well, the thing for that, and everyone who is an honest seeker has the potential to do exactly what every religion says that they think they should be. If you see truth and hang on to it and disregard the stuff that is garbage that comes along with it, then you are far superior. Now, someone may say I need to be Catholic, or some may say I need to be just a non-denominational Christian, or a Jehovah's Witness, or a Mormon, or agnostic. If there is a God, I believe there is, but just for the sake of those who may not believe, if there is one, the standing of the person who accepts what is true and lives by it more readily than the person who accepts what is true and holds to the stuff that isn't true with blindness and arrogance. The one who is minus those bad qualities is the one who's going to stand up much better, because they are more accepting of new ideas, stuff like I had mentioned before that is contrary to the traditions that may prevent us from being more perfect in our lives and more helpful in our lives. And for people, and this goes to an individual thing, because granted, I'm not a Catholic and I don't hold anything against them, because I cannot judge the Catholic Church on the dealings of some people. You know, maybe it was cardinals or popes, or maybe it was just a bishop, or maybe just some person who was in a congregation that had done horrible things. That doesn't make the whole horrible. There may be a cancer in the body, but the body isn't diseased, just that piece of cancer. And I would hope that episodes like this one can help people see or open their minds, you know, to where there are a myriad of different examples of different opinions and clashing ideas. And ours is not to be the judge, jury, and executioner. We may judge by our own standards, but have a heart that's open enough to feel for the people that are involved in it, instead of cutting ourselves off from what could be a potential growth for everyone.
Well, hey, you know, I grew up in a Protestant home. I am a Protestant Christian, have been all my life. And from being a member of the United Church of Christ, being non-denominational, being General Baptist, and now being a United Methodist, of all those denominations I have been a part of, and I was even part of a non-denominational congregation for a number of years, my most positive experience. Not that I'm saying that the other two, the General Baptist and the UCC, were negative by a stretch, but they caused either my family or myself to say, I can no longer associate with you because of X, Y, or Z. But I am actually in a mixed faith marriage. I am Protestant. My wife is Catholic and devout, a very devout Catholic. She was homeschooled within the Catholic Church. Her mother is Catholic. Her father is, I guess the best descriptor for him would be agnostic. He believes, but he does not belong to any particular denomination. But we work with him. We talk to him when he brings up questions. But I have nothing but the utmost respect and, in some instances, reverence for the Catholic Church. This past semester, I was studying church history from the Reformation up until modern era, even though I didn't finish the course and anything because of, everything that's been going on in my life and in the world in general. I understand why the Reformation did happen, but in some ways, I think the Reformation was carried too far.
Okay, you take that. Now, I'm not saying you're right or wrong.
No.
This is totally a non-judgmental thing, because take what you just said, put yourself in the doctor's position, where he did not respect the other people's beliefs.
Yeah.
How can you justify that? I am not saying the doctor was right. I am not saying the doctor was wrong. I'm just saying that he wasn't open-minded enough to be able to understand what other people were doing. He'd put the blinders on, put the focus on, made excuses for his lack of understanding other people using his Hippocratic oath. And it eventually ended up for everyone being in tears.
Yeah. And you know what? Yeah, Adega, I wholeheartedly agree with you. Franklin, I think, depending on your point of view, I think Franklin was extremely narrow-minded. I think he was, in some instances, in error. Did he have the best intentions at heart for the child? Yes, he did. But while he was trying to tell the other doctor, Hernandez, you give them this, you give them that, you try and work with them and try to get them to that point where they say, okay, perform the surgery. But the problem was he almost backtracked and contradicted his own self, because all of those little steps that he was trying to do weren't getting the results that he had hoped for. Instead, the parents were like, no, I'm sorry, we can't go along with what you're saying. We can't go along with what you want to do to our child. And I might even be contradicting myself here to a certain degree, even though I think I've said I have put myself in the parents' position, and I can understand their devotion to their belief and that they will see their child in the afterlife. And, for a lot of us in the Christian faith, that is something that we hold very strongly to. That even though we lose people that we love and that we care about, family and friends alike, we'll see them again. There is a hereafter. There is a heaven. There is a place where the souls of our mothers and fathers and grandparents and friends and everyone that we loved and cared for, obviously with the caveat that they are saved, wait for us. And I can respect what they were saying to their child to give him some comfort. Be a beacon for us. We'll see you on the other side. I can wholeheartedly respect and I can resonate and relate to that sentiment. Even though some people outside of the faith may say, well, that's just a hollow promise or just a platitude or a cliche. For, I imagine, most of us in the chat and the three of us here, we all believe in a heaven, whatever name we may call it by. And what they were saying to their son was what those parents were saying to their son was beautiful. It was reassuring. It was comforting. And I wholeheartedly respect that they were trying to do that for their son before his end.
And to be fair to the parents, you could see after what happened that if it were up to us, we'd forgive you. They wanted Franklin, I know, to perform the surgery, but their beliefs wouldn't let them.
Yeah.
So there is, and that's why it's so tough. I do believe they were good people, but they were, their faith wouldn't allow their child to physically live, where they believed in life was more important than living.
Yeah.
And I think this episode is such a tough one. I know I lost both my parents to cancer, and near the end they were making really difficult decisions. Do we resuscitate and give them a few more weeks of life and hope because treatments were coming online, or do we just let the suffering end? Because near the end, especially with my mother, it was just pain every day for her. Even touching her was painful for her.
Yeah. Well, and I can, on a personal level, and I think I've mentioned this, I may not have mentioned it to anybody that's in the chat currently. I lost my father when I was 7. I lost my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, whom I was very close to between my sophomore and junior years of high school. And even though the last years of her life were hard, physically for her, she was in a lot of pain. Ultimately, I know that she is in a better place. I know that my father is in a better place, and as is my maternal grandfather. And I've lost a lot of friends, a lot of family that I care about. But the comfort that I hold on to is that I know each and every one of those people is saved. They were believers in Christ, and that they wait for me. So I can say with all candidness and sincerity, what the parents did for their child was right, because they will see him again. They will mourn, they will grieve however long that mourning process is for them. They will mourn their child being gone. And I think in this particular instance, even though we don't agree with their belief system, we don't even believe with the choices that their belief system drove them to make, who are we to say that they were in error? Because if this future that Babylon 5 depicts us as being at least somewhat more enlightened and more tolerant than Sinclair and all the other ambassadors, well, except maybe for Londo, they made the right choice in staying outside of the situation. We may not have agreed with Franklin's actions, even though they were not wholly self-serving, but he was doing what he felt was right for that child. And ultimately, he'll have to live for the rest of his life with that decision, knowing the outcome of it, that ultimately the parents took the life of their child. So, if there's anything you guys want to piggyback on or anything from what I just said, I open it up.
Oh, no, sorry. Adego, fire away there. I've been chatting a bit too and give you a chance.
Oh, I took the whole first 15, 20 minutes, so it's good up to you. The only thing is I'm just, I'm impressed with the way the chat went. This is a very, very difficult. And when you're put in a position where there is no right answer and there is no wrong answer, it's left up to what is most fair and most enlightened and most heart building, then I think we're okay to make the hard decision, even though it may not be right or may not be wrong.
Yeah.
So I appreciate it. I have to run. I'm very sorry. I do have.
No, it's okay. We're gonna.
one.
No, that's all right. We're gonna wrap up here, and we're gonna wrap up right now because I think we've covered this episode and we've gone a little bit far afield on this episode, so we can end right here, and that is fine and everything. I want to thank both my guests, Mountains of Elysium and Adega, once again for being here today. I appreciate you both tuning in.
Thank you.
And guys, this has been. I know this was a hard one. But I hope for those of you that were here in the chat, I hope that what we discussed was enlightening. I hope it was entertaining. And I hope it gave you something to think about because this is an episode that really makes you want to sit down and have a think. On a happier note, this evening at 5:30 Eastern time, I think that's, no, let's see, hour ahead. So it'll be 4:30 Central my time. I'll be with Nobody Geek Jesse, Chef Zilla, and Mir on Let's Talk Star Trek. And everything we'll be talking about our favorite episodes from the original series. So be sure to turn in for that. I will tweet out the link for that stream and everything when I get around to it. And then this weekend on the Ambassador, well, actually, first things first, this Friday night on Orange Hat Reviews channel, I will be joining him and his panel for another debate and everything. We're going to be debating who would win a fight between two legends from the Star Wars Expanded Universe, Darth Vitiate of the Eternal Empire and the one and only Darth Sidious of the First Galactic Empire. So be sure to tune in for that. And then, of course, this weekend, Ambassadorial Wing will be back at its normal time, 7:30 Central. And we are going to be talking about the Back to the Future trilogy. So I hope to see y'all then. And as always, this is the Ambassador signing off.